Afterward, they departed from the palace in silence, without exchanging any words. Furthermore, Sunday Mondaig inquired of the king why he hadn't conveyed to Gwiung what he intended to share. In reply, the king, gazing at the sky, expressed that it felt too shameless to disclose. Shortly after, night descended, and the moon made its appearance. Gwiung and his sister strolled silently over the snow-covered landscape. His sister turned to him and straightforwardly stated that she wouldn't let him do whatever he pleased. She expressed her concern about being brought into a noble house by selling himself, and emphasized her reluctance to go through such a path alone. When his brother inquired about her blunt statement, his sister explained that she would be open to the idea if he joined her in that endeavor. He then revealed that after the barbarians had killed their parents 5 years ago, he had made a promise with their father. He pledged to protect her no matter what, assuring her not to worry about him. His sister smiled and remarked that he had been protecting her for a long time. She expressed gratitude for having him by her side. Suddenly, a swift weapon darted directly towards her, narrowly passing by Gwiung as he spoke. He was taken aback by the sudden attack. A sense of shock gripped him as his sister was pierced by an arrow near her heart, leaving both of them in stunned disbelief. Swiftly, he rushed to her aid. The barbarians, who were behind him, missed hitting him but accidentally struck his sister instead. They continued to reveal themselves and explained that, thanks to Makan, the barbarian he had killed, they were able to track him down. As he held his sister on his arms, the barbarians surrounded him. Dongyi, his sister, looked at him in pain and called him brother. Turns out, she was telling her brother to look out from behind him as one of the barbarians was about to strike him. Suddenly, Sunday Mondaig arrived at the right timing and stopped the attack. He asked Gwiung what's the situation, while Gwiung was panicking about his sister. Subsequently, Dongyi trembled in pain while she cried. She called her brother and told him that he was okay. However, as she was speaking and telling him that she was fine, she suddenly started to close her eyes slowly. One of the barbarians quickly moved and wielded his weapon against Sunday Mondaig. But Sunday Mondaig didn't panic and remained calm despite the upcoming attack. Quickly, he sliced the barbarian into pieces with just one wield of his sword. Upon slicing him into pieces, Sunday Mondaig remained steadfast and calm. Witnessing one of their comrades swiftly sliced into pieces, they were overcome with shock and terror. Sunday Mondaig quickly turned and attempted to get Gwiung's attention, urging him to snap out of it and come to his senses. He cradled his sister in his arms, gently caressing her, only to come to the heartbreaking realization that she was now lifeless. Panic spread among the barbarians as they were well aware of Lee Sunday Mondaig and his formidable swordsmanship. Fearing the prowess of Lee Sunday Mondaig, they hastily fled, their fear propelling them to escape as swiftly as possible. Gwiung gently laid his sister down, a heavy sorrow weighing on him as he prepared to face the aftermath of the sudden and tragic turn of events. Swiftly, he rose to his feet and retrieved his weapon. Sunday Mondaig, observing his actions, inquired about his intentions, asking what he was about to do. Filled with wrath, he harbored a burning desire to exact vengeance and eliminate every last one of the barbarians responsible for his sister's death. With determination fueling his every step, he swiftly ran after the fleeing barbarians. Sunday Mondaig observed him with a solemn gaze, understanding the storm of emotions and purpose that drove Gwiung in that moment. While Gwiung pursued with a vengeance, the barbarians continued their frantic escape. In the midst of their escape, one of the barbarians pondered aloud why Sunday Mondaig was present in the northern regions. Unbeknownst to the questioning barbarian, Gwiung was silently closing in from behind. Swiftly and decisively, Gwiung executed a precise strike, severing the arm of the barbarian and leaving them stunned. The severed arm fell to the ground. Filled with wrath, Gwiung, pointing at the severed arm, declared that it was the very hand that had wielded the bow against his sister. Undeterred, the barbarian attempted to retaliate, but Gwiung, prepared and fueled by determination, swiftly moved to slice off the other hand. As the hand fell to the ground, Gwiung grimly stated that it was the very hand that had pulled the bowstring. Quickly, he delivered a powerful punch to the barbarian's abdomen. As the barbarian crumpled to the ground, he pointed his sword threateningly at the barbarian's eyes. As he pointed the sword at the barbarian's eye, he uttered with conviction that it was the very eye that had aimed at his sister. Gwiung gazed at the fallen barbarian with tears streaming down his eyes. In the midst of the charged atmosphere, a gruesome act unfolded. Meanwhile, the king, accompanied by his guards, roamed the forest in search of Gwiung. The king inquired of Sunday Mondaig whether Gwiung had passed through that path. Sunday Mondaig confirmed that Gwiung had indeed gone after the enemy with determined purpose. Shortly after their conversation, the king spotted him, his figure emerging from the shadows of the forest. Walking towards them, Gwiung embodied the nickname Ghost Shadow, a testament to his stealth and formidable presence. His eyes were devoid of emotion, an emptiness reflecting the profound grief and anger within him. Suddenly, he was taken aback by an unexpected sight. a momentary shock registering on his expression. In a surprising turn of events, Guyung's shock intensified as he discovered that his sister was alive and in the company of the king. Without hesitation, they swiftly ran towards each other, a reunion marked by relief, disbelief, and the overwhelming joy of finding one another alive. His brother stood there, unable to believe his eyes, as the realization slowly dawned on him that she was indeed alive. Nevertheless, the king's expression bore an unusual quality as he observed the reunion. The king, with a measured tone, inquired whether Guyung was genuinely happy to see his sister alive. Abruptly, the king produced and brandished his weapon, leaving Guyung astonished and uncertain about the intentions behind this unexpected action. Out of nowhere, the king viciously struck Guyung's sister from behind. His sister writhed in agony, the sudden and brutal attack leaving her in excruciating pain. Despite the anguish and suffering of Guyung's sister, the king stood resolute, showing no signs of remorse. Enraged, Guyung confronted the king, questioning the motives behind this inexplicable and cruel action. His surprise deepened as the king nonchalantly stated that his sister would revive regardless, introducing a mysterious element to the unfolding situation. The king raised his voice, commanding him to think. The king then revealed that during the Jurchen invasion 5 years ago, he was the sole survivor. Moreover, the king disclosed that Guyung's sister had perished on that fateful day during the Jurchen invasion. Stunned and in shock, he grappled with the revelation that what he held onto as his sister was, in fact, nothing more than an illusion. He found himself in a state of astonishment, unsure of how to react, struggling to comprehend the reality of what had just transpired. In a panic, he frantically scanned his surroundings, desperately searching for his sister, only to come to the harsh realization that she had been nothing more than a figment of his imagination all along. The king then spoke, mentioning that he had heard rumors about him, all of which aligned with what had just been conveyed. People thought Guyung couldn't handle losing his sister to the barbarians, seeing him as a troubled child who had lost his grip on reality. Upon hearing this, Guyung became infuriated, dismissing the claims as utter nonsense. He countered by stating that others had witnessed him with his sister as well. He asserted that there were sightings of them in the village and even at the government office. As he reminisced about those moments, he continued to emphasize that everyone had seen him with his sister. He went a step further, passionately urging Sunday to Mondag to believe his account of events. However, Sunday to Mondag revealed that throughout that period, Guyung had been alone. Even during the scenes where he appeared to be arguing with his sister, Sunday to Mondag disclosed that Guyung was actually alone, engaged in a conversation with himself. The king, too, observed instances where Guyung was talking to himself. Furthermore, when the barbarians attacked, they were perplexed by his erratic behavior, questioning why he was talking to himself and displaying signs of madness. Even Sunday to Mondag had wondered earlier about his actions, questioning what he was up to. He was shocked to learn the truth, that his sister, Dongyi, had never been there with him. Returning to the moment when his father faced imminent danger, he entrusted Dongyi to him, urging him to protect her. He covered his sister's mouth to prevent her from making any noise while they were hiding from the barbarians. Upon his father's death, he directed his gaze towards the figure responsible for his father's demise. In that moment, he restrained himself but couldn't help but take a closer look. He observed a man exuding a dark aura, unable to discern the finer details of his appearance. Shortly after, they managed to escape, and he sprinted away, carrying his sister on his back. Panting heavily, he continued running, tears still streaming down his eyes. Despite his exhaustion, he remained determined not to let the barbarians catch them. Suddenly, a man appeared in front of them. Turns out, it was their grandfather, Kang. His grandfather was also surprised to see him. His grandfather quickly approached, delighted to see them alive. But he observed that only Guyung and his sister were present. Consequently, he inquired whether their parents had managed to escape the village. Guyung couldn't hold back his tears as he recounted how the barbarians had forcibly taken their mother and cruelly ended their father's life. Just as he was about to delve into the further hardships they endured, their grandpa embraced Guyung, reassuring him that everything was okay now that they, at least, had made it out alive. However, their grandfather noticed that an arrow was lodged in Dongyi's back. The sight both surprised and deeply concerned him. Swiftly, Guyung brought Dongyi to the ground. She was breathing heavily. In a state of tremor and panic, he found himself at a loss, unsure of what actions to take. His grandpa quickly warned him against attempting to remove the arrow. Surprise washed over Guyung as his grandfather informed him that there was a boat nearby, ready and waiting. If they could board it, they could make their way to the next village. However, right as his grandfather was speaking, a sudden shock silenced him as an arrow pierced through his head. Guyung swiftly turned to identify the source of the arrow. As he turned, Guyung witnessed the barbarians closing in on him. The leader, mounted on a horse, was the one who had fired the arrow. Acting swiftly, he carried his sister onto his back. With his sister on his back, Guiyang sprinted away in an attempt to escape, leaving behind his grandfather who had been fatally struck. The barbarian leader swiftly commanded his men to pursue Guiyang and his sister. Shortly after, Guiyang and Dongyi managed to board the boat that their grandfather had mentioned and swiftly set sail on their journey. As he paddled, Guiyang turned to his sister, who was calling out to him and breathing heavily. His sister was already on the verge of dying. On the other hand, the barbarians witnessed the two children leaving on the boat. Frustration set in as they realized they had lost their chance and it was too late to catch them. Just as it seemed they might let them escape, their leader intervened and ordered them to shoot a flaming arrow at the boat. He instructed them to eliminate any possibility of escape and to shoot a fire arrow without hesitation. As Guiyang paddled fervently, an arrow struck the boat. He witnessed a flaming arrow suddenly embed itself in the boat. Panting heavily, he glanced upward, only to be filled with surprise as an unexpected situation unfolded. His eyes widened as he observed numerous flaming arrows descending towards their boat from above. Reacting swiftly, he rushed to his sister's side, seeking to shield her from the impending danger. However, in the midst of the chaos, they lost their balance, and the boat abruptly overturned. As a consequence, both of them plunged into the water. He screamed his sister's name, struggling to stay afloat and avoid drowning in the water. Quickly thinking on his feet, he decided to dive beneath the water. He dove deep into the water, frantically attempting to reach his sister who was sinking even farther beneath the surface. However, a wave of dismay and shock overcame him as he beheld his sister's face and her dire situation. His sister's eyes were nearly lifeless, devoid of hope, and she was visibly struggling, indicating the bleakness of her survival prospects. As she sank deeper, she began to slowly close her eyes, a poignant sign of the impending tragedy. As Guiyang recollected this painful memory of his sister, he screamed in shock and anguish. The air resonated with the sounds of pain and frustration as he screamed, the emotions enveloping him in a torrent of despair. Unable to fathom the reality of his sister's death, he found himself on the brink of losing all sense of composure once again. The king and his right-hand man exchanged concerned glances as they observed Guiyang. The king approached Guiyang with a measured pace, offering a heartfelt apology for the failure to protect his family and village. He urged Guiyang to place the blame on him and on the nation for their perceived inaction. Tears streamed down Guiyang's face, and a mixture of emotions overwhelmed him as the king encouraged him to release the burden of guilt for not being able to protect his family. Afterwards, Guiyang glanced to his side, and to his amazement, an illusion of his sister appeared once more, calling him brother. His sister extended her hand and inquired if he was in a lot of pain. Tears cascaded from his eyes, and he was overcome with overwhelming emotions. He extended his hand and tenderly touched his sister's face. A bittersweet smile crossed his face as he awkwardly realized that, since that gruesome day, his sister hadn't grown up. His sister's eyes welled up with tears as she affectionately called him brother. Gradually, she began to fade away, expressing gratitude to him as she vanished. She started to vanish, leaving Guiyang alone. His hands trembled as he came to the painful realization that his sister was truly gone. He cried helplessly in front of the king, who silently observed his grief with a heavy heart. He continued to cry inconsolably, his heart burdened with the heavy reality that his sister was truly gone. The weight of sorrow was palpable in the air. The king gazed at him intently, a deep concern etched on his face. Subsequently, he placed a comforting hand on Guiyang's head and expressed that if he could let go of his resentment and hatred, choosing to live an ordinary life, the king promised to make it happen. The king knelt down and conveyed that if Guiyang chose to spend the rest of his life hunting barbarians like a butcher, then he would strive to open up a better path for him. He went on to explain that there was a prestigious organization called the Northern Spearhead, specifically created to confront the Jurchens, known as the Informer. The king asked Guiyang if he would consider becoming an informer, channeling his rage to protect the nation and its people. Although he acknowledged it as a shameless request, the king sincerely presented the option to him. The king's curiosity was piqued when Guiyang inquired if he could find out a specific man. Guiyang clarified that he vividly remembered the person responsible, the one who had set their village ablaze. He revealed that this man was the one who had ruthlessly killed his family. Guiyang's expression turned resolute as he contemplated thoughts of the man who had caused so much pain. The king, in turn, observed him in solemn silence. Shortly afterward, the king handed Guiyang a jade plaque and instructed him to accept it. Guiyang examined the plaque attentively as the king explained that he should carry it once winter passed. The king mentioned that when the royal procession was recruiting, if Guiyang held the plaque, he would be able to reach him immediately. The king rose to his feet and declared that in that very moment, he would officially become an informer. Following that incident, Guiyang is preparing to have a meal on the other day. And at this moment, his order of chicken and soup has just been served. A wave of happiness swept over him, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of delight. Saliva began to escape from his mouth as he gazed at the tempting spread of food laid out before him. Without wasting any time, he swiftly grabbed a piece of chicken. Suddenly, he extended the chicken towards his sister, attempting to offer it to her. However, he quickly realized that his sister was no longer by his side. A profound silence enveloped him as he came to the realization that his sister is gone. The weight of her absence settled in, casting a somber atmosphere. Out of nowhere, someone swiftly snatched the chicken from his grasp. General Sunday Tamandag took a seat beside him and inquired about his well-being, asking how he was holding up. His sudden appearance caught him off guard, leaving him surprised and slightly taken aback. The general ordered a drink and informed Guiyang that there was no alcohol on his table. Shortly afterward, he turned his gaze towards Guiyang, observing him closely. Guiyang was suddenly taken aback when Sunday Tamandag asked if he could still see his sister. Guiyang responded, expressing that he could no longer see his sister. As they conversed, their drinks were served. Sunday Tamandag poured a drink, visibly relieved by his response. In a gesture of camaraderie, Sunday Tamandag offered Guiyang a drink, explaining that sending off his sister marked Guiyang's first step into adulthood. Despite the offer, Guiyang hesitated to take a sip. Curious, Guiyang inquired about the reason someone of Sunday Tamandag's stature was paying attention to someone like him. Sunday Tamandag explained that he found him interesting, which led to his interest in him. Furthermore, he revealed that it was at the behest of the king that he had discovered more about him. Continuing his explanation, Sunday Tamandag remarked that Guiyang's ability to take lives at such a young age and the numerous records associated with his name were what made him particularly intriguing. Sunday Tamandag expressed amazement at how Guiyang's ghost shadow name had been uncovered, highlighting the mystique surrounding Guiyang's identity. However, Sunday Tamandag was taken by surprise when Guiyang began saying something unexpected. Suddenly, Guiyang revealed that Gui Hanya meant precious and Young Hanya meant welcome. He disclosed that these were his real names, leaving Sunday Tamandag taken aback by the unexpected revelation. In response to Guiyang's revelation, Sunday Tamandag poured another drink and offered an apology, admitting that it was his nature not to delve deeply into his initial assumptions. A mixture of emotions overcame him as Sunday Tamandag conveyed that whatever he chose to do in the future would be a journey to cleanse his past and pave the way for a new path forward. Acknowledging the gravity of the moment, Sunday Tamandag extended a drink to him, proposing a toast to celebrate the beginning of his new life. Guiyang gazed at the drink, a myriad of thoughts swirling in his mind, contemplating the significance of the moment and the path that lay ahead. After a moment of contemplation, he smiled and agreed to join in, ready to embrace the new chapter that awaited him. With a decisive move, he quickly drank the wine, symbolizing a symbolic initiation into the journey that lay ahead in his new life. Sunday Tamandag turned his gaze toward Guiyang. He was surprised to find Guiyang asleep after consuming just one bowl of the drink. Standing up, Sunday Tamandag smirked, contemplating the situation with a realization that Guiyang, despite his prowess, had not fully embraced the experiences of adulthood. Sunday Tamandag, with a determined purpose, began searching through Guiyang's belongings. Not finding what he sought in the initial search, he persisted and delved into Guiyang's clothes. Upon discovering what he was searching for, a triumphant smile adorned Sunday Tamandag's face. With a sense of accomplishment, Sunday Tamandag finally held the jade plaque in his hands, the sought-after item that had driven his search through Guiyang's belongings. Having secured the jade plaque, he discreetly left him and carefully concealed the precious item, ensuring its secrecy and protection. Before departing, he turned for a final glance at Guiyang and remarked that things aren't interesting if they're too easy. He advised him to have some fun, injecting a hint of mischief into his parting words. Departing from the scene, he left a piece of advice for those around, suggesting they refrain from waking him and let him continue his peaceful slumber. Shortly after Sunday Tamandag's departure, the night descended, and the moon cast its gentle glow, illuminating the surroundings with its soft, silvery light. Guiyang woke up, feeling a sense of surprise and lingering dizziness from his earlier indulgence. Attempting to sit up, Guiyang, still grappling with dizziness, pondered the moment he had fallen asleep and the transition into the night that had occurred in his unconscious state. Curiosity filled his thoughts as he wondered whether General Lee Sunday Tamandag had departed in his absence. Recollections of General Lee Sunday Tamandag's words about moving forward onto a new path echoed in Guiyang's mind as he grappled with the aftermath of the night's events. Empowered by the resolve to move forward, he felt a newfound determination, recognizing that what had transpired was merely the beginning of his journey. As he surveyed his surroundings, Guiyang contemplated the notion that the recruitment for the royal forces had commenced, possibly signaling a shift in the dynamics of his world. In the quiet moments of reflection, he recalled the king's words about his role as an informer. Focusing on the task at hand, he endeavored to retrieve the jade plaque from his clothes. A surge of surprise and shock swept through him as he realized that the jade plaque, once securely hidden, was now nowhere to be found. Caught in a frenzy of searching, he drew the attention of onlookers as he frantically tossed aside belongings, desperately attempting to locate the elusive jade plaque. A sinking realization dawned on him as he acknowledged that the jade plaque, a gift from the king, was gone. As time passed, the day of the recruitment arrived, and the proceedings unfolded high up in the mountains, setting the stage for a significant event in Guiyang's life. A multitude of people had gathered for the recruitment, creating a bustling atmosphere as individuals from various walks of life assembled in anticipation of what the day held for them. Among the crowd, eyes turned towards Guiyang, and a sense of disbelief rippled through the onlookers as they observed a child like him applying for recruitment. While the crowd buzzed with activity, he remained lost in his thoughts as the absence of the jade plaque weighing heavily on his mind. Shortly after, the recruitment process progressed, and individuals began stepping forward to announce their names. The man conducting the recruitment was visibly surprised, perhaps taken aback by the unexpected presence of a young participant. Guiyang, explaining his situation to the old man, mentioned the lost jade plaque. The man, shocked by the revelation and considering Guiyang's age, inquired about the origin of the precious item and how a child like him came to possess it. A smile graced Guiyang's face as he disclosed to the man that the jade plaque was a gift from the king himself. Following Guiyang's revelation about the king's gift, a hushed silence descended upon the gathering. Perceiving Guiyang's statement as incredulous, the old man deemed him to be possibly delusional, and instructed the guards to escort him out, dismissing the notion of the king's gift as seemingly absurd. Shortly after, the proctor in charge of the Northern Royal Forces recruitment introduced himself as Kim Jang, outlining the position he held in the proceeding. Kim Jang, in his announcement, revealed that the selection standards were stricter than previously known. However, he countered this with the promise of exceptional benefits and wages for those fortunate enough to be chosen for the recruitment. Emphasizing the gravity of the endeavor, he added that the recruitment wasn't something achievable through mere luck or superficial skills. The crowd's attention shifted to Guiyang after Kim Jang's remark about the unsuitability of someone who claimed to lose a jade plaque. This statement took Guiyang by surprise, as the judgment seemed to be directed at him. Furthermore, he proceeded to explain the details of the first test. He pointed to the mountain top, announcing that those who could retrieve the red feathered arrow from that lofty height would be deemed successful in the first test. Adding a layer of challenge, he disclosed that there are only 10 red feathered arrows for the 30 participants, implying that they needed to strategize and compete for the limited opportunities available. As the realization of the limited red feathered arrows sunk in, the recruits wasted no time and swiftly darted towards the mountain. Amidst the flurry of activity, Kim Jang keenly observed that one person wasn't partaking in the rapid ascent. Guiyang, standing apart from the rushing crowd, admitted to Kim Jang that he was taken by surprise, offering an explanation for his delayed response to the unfolding events. Responding promptly to Kim Jang's instruction, Guiyang quickly joined the race. As Guiyang sprinted alongside the others, he couldn't help but marvel at the audacity of a child like him daring to participate in the challenging recruitment. While navigating the path upwards, his thoughts drifted, and he found himself contemplating the mystery of how he had lost the jade plaque. Guiyang ran, realizing that with only 10 arrows available, securing the 10th position was vital. Falling far behind, he questioned if he could catch up. During his ascent, he was taken by surprise as a sight unfolded before him, capturing his attention along the way. He was surprised to witness participants strewn across the ground. Curious about the sudden commotion and unaware of the impending threat, he wondered what had happened. Little did he know, someone was poised to strike him from behind. Reacting with swift agility, he managed to dodge the impending attack, narrowly evading the strike aimed at him from behind. The group of men, witnessing Guiyang's nimble evasion, was collectively surprised by his ability to avoid the attack with such speed. One of the men, adopting a sarcastic tone, remarked that while there were 10 red feathered arrows, the proctor hadn't mentioned if there would be the same number of passes. The man straightforwardly declared their intention to knock out and steal arrows from others descending the mountain, intensifying the competitive and cutthroat nature of the recruitment process. Hearing the ruthless strategy, Guiyang couldn't believe the audacity of those men, registering his surprise at the cutthroat tactics being proposed. Reacting to the imminent threat, one of the men charged at him, brandishing a weapon with the clear intention of targeting him. To their astonishment, the man attacking him was taken by surprise as Guiyang managed to disarm him, swiftly turning the tables in a display of unexpected prowess. In a sudden twist, the momentum shifted, and the disarmed man found himself in the path of his own weapon. Capitalizing on the opportunity, Guiyang struck the weapon against the man's head, delivering a decisive counterattack in the escalating confrontation. As Guiyang struck the man, he spoke and inquired. Wearing a smile, Guiyang asked the man how they had come up with such a cunning and ruthless strategy. Once the man was struck on the head, he immediately experienced a sudden onset of dizziness, causing him to fall. The members of his group were taken aback when they realized that their fellow comrade had been struck by a child. He found it hard to believe that he had been hit by nothing more than a child. Fueled by anger at Guiyang's insult, he instructed his group to charge all at once. Meanwhile, a supervisor is positioned above, carefully observing the participants as they run. Li Sunday to Mondag approached General Choi, who was also keeping a close watch on the events unfolding. The general inquired why Yi Sun-mong stood beside him and suggested he move to the other side. Meanwhile, Sunday to Mondag simply ignored him. The general explained to him, emphasizing that people had no alternative but to join. He highlighted the advantage of swiftly completing their military service, coupled with the opportunity for individuals from lower social classes to avoid the burden of concealing their identity. The general informed him that the king was genuinely committed to implementing informers this time. Subsequently, Sunday to Mondag made a concerted effort to closely observe the participants, specifically attempting to identify Guiyang among them. The general inquired if Sunday to Mondag was referring to the boy who had been personally honored with a jade plaque by the king. He suggested that if Guiyang had one, they might be gathered elsewhere. Sunday to Mondag, however, explained that certain circumstances compelled Guiyang to participate in the test personally. The general then disclosed that, from the beginning, he found the idea of awarding a jade plaque to a child quite absurd. He pointed out that informers constituted the most elite intelligence unit operating in the northern region. He thought the child with the jade plaque might feel he doesn't deserve it. Nevertheless, Sunday to Mondag countered, asserting that Guiyang was exceptional and possessed unique abilities. Yet, his prowess wasn't limited to just one aspect. He elaborated, noting that at the tender age of 12, Guiyang had actively sought out pillaging sites and demonstrated the capability to defeat barbarians. The general listened attentively as Sunday to Mondag emphasized that true effectiveness comes from actual battle experience. He added, stating that if natural talent is layered on top of that experience, he remarked that Guiyang possessed a heaven-sent talent. On the flip side, Guiyang was actively engaged in combat with some of the other participants. While in the midst of his fight with one opponent, Guiyang sensed another participant about to strike from behind. Swiftly dodging the attack, Guiyang managed to evade the strike, causing the assailant to inadvertently hit another man instead. Consequently, the bald man felt unconscious due to the unintended blow. Quickly, he delivered a swift kick to the man's private parts. The kick caused the man to wince in pain, tears welling up in his eyes. Shortly after, another participant was gearing up to strike him. Unable to dodge the attack this time, the man's weapon broke upon striking Guiyang's face. However, the man was taken aback, surprised that Guiyang could still stand after enduring such a blow. Guiyang appeared somewhat peculiar after asserting that the man's strike didn't have much impact on him. On the contrary, the man sarcastically smiled and remarked that, despite Guiyang's claim, it did indeed hurt. As the man prepared for another attack, Guiyang swiftly moved to counter the impending strike. Their leader was astonished to see his men getting knocked down. With his hand on his head, Guiyang remarked that rotten branches could hurt as much as they appeared to and could also serve as effective weapons. He retracted his earlier statements and conceded that both Guiyang and his comrade were indeed successful candidates. Guiyang responded by stating that it would be all for naught if he were the sole individual to pass. However, the man dismissed him as foolish, asserting that Guiyang couldn't handle the remaining challenges on his own. Persisting in his argument, the man displayed his muscles, emphasizing that victory was possible if they worked together. He questioned Guiyang, asking if his muscles appeared reliable. Guiyang pondered the man's proposition, contemplating the idea of collaboration. The man inquired about Guiyang's name, to which he confirmed that his name was indeed Guiyang. Moreover, the man pondered for a moment, feeling like he had heard the name before. Extending his hand, the man asked Guiyang to become his associate. Shortly after, Dumak climbed up the tree and informed him that there wasn't a single person in sight. Subsequently, Guiyang found it strange and contemplated that those who had reached the mountain first should be returning promptly. Dumak suggested that something might have occurred, emphasizing that they wouldn't know unless they ascended to the top to see for themselves. Guiyang agreed, acknowledging the validity of Dumak's suggestion. Descending from the tree, he recommended that they hasten their ascent before the sunset. However, as soon as he touched the ground, Guiyang was already in motion, running towards their destination. Dumak accepted the situation, thinking it was okay for Guiyang to proceed on his own since his own plans had been disrupted by their encounter. Surprisingly, Dumak found himself taken aback when Guiyang urged him to hasten and halted to wait for him. This left him shocked, realizing that Guiyang genuinely believed in the notion of being associates as he wanted him to come. Observing Guiyang as he ran, Dumak couldn't help but ponder that he truly couldn't understand him. He wondered how Guiyang had become so strong at such a young age. Nonetheless, Dumak couldn't shake the impression that Guiyang appeared a bit dull and naive despite his strength. So, Dumak thought he could use him as a powerful asset during the test. As the sun set, they were close to arrive at the tree. 10 arrows were embedded in the tree above, marking their path. Guiyang felt content that they had finally reached the top, while Dumak, on the other hand, was visibly exhausted. A man by the tree welcomed them and inquired if they were the last participants to arrive. He questioned what petty tricks they had employed at the base of the mountain, leading them to only start climbing now. Dumak suddenly realized that there was a proctor at the top and understood why there had been so much chaos. Guiyang was taken aback, surprised to see that the man also possessed a jade plaque. The man inquired if Guiyang knew what the jade plaque was to be acting so welcoming. In response, Guiyang explained that he had also received a jade plaque, but due to losing it, he was facing the same challenges as the regular participants. The man stood up, realizing that Guiyang was the person being discussed, the one who had a jade plaque but lost it. Guiyang remained silent as the man asked if he understood the significance of possessing a jade plaque. The man explained that the jade plaque was a testament to being acknowledged by His Majesty as the king's sword. He emphasized that it symbolized an achievement that someone of a lowly class like Guiyang shouldn't even dare to speak of. As Guiyang was about to speak, Dumak intervened, stating that the man's words were harsh. Continuing, Dumak remarked that judging from the man's haughty demeanor, he appeared to be a child from a Yongban household. He asserted that the man should be aware of the special condition of the test, where they weren't checking one's social status. Dumak questioned why the man resorted to insulting words like lowly and crude, emphasizing that strength alone wasn't enough. Then, the man produced 2 wooden weapons. He instructed them to pick up the wooden weapons and wield them. The man then challenged both of them to come at him simultaneously, promising that if they succeeded, they would earn his acknowledgement by taking an arrow from him. Dumak grabbed one of the weapons and urged Guiyang not to step up, emphasizing that this was a rare opportunity that wouldn't come around again. Without any hesitation, he charged at the man. However, the man skillfully dodged Dumak's attack. Yet, the man was taken by surprise as another attack was swiftly approaching, aimed at his head. Reacting swiftly, he intercepted the attack using his sword. Dumak grinned and inquired what the man thought of his swordsmanship. Continuing his assault, Dumak pressed on, infusing more force into his attacks. In response, the man simply took a breath, seemingly composed and unfazed. Dumak was taken aback when the man seemingly vanished into thin air, swiftly dodging the attack. Suddenly, the man reappeared behind Dumak and remarked that he didn't have any expectations from the beginning, but it turned out as he anticipated. Taking advantage of Dumak's momentary distraction, the man struck from behind, catching him off guard. Just as Dumak was about to counterattack, the man targeted his leg. The strike on his leg caused Dumak to scream in pain as he knelt forcefully. Shortly after, the man directed his attention to Dumak's shoulders. The man continued his assault, stating that even if Dumak hailed from a humble origin, he should at least possess a decent character. Dumak found himself helpless, unable to do anything as he faced a relentless barrage of attacks. The man cruelly struck Dumak as he remarked that Dumak should be more careful, adding a touch of cruelty to his action. As the man continued his assault, Guiyang suddenly intervened, grabbing Dumak to shield him from further blows. Guiyang intervened, urging the man to stop and expressing that he was being excessively harsh. Continuing, he remarked that the situation didn't resemble a royal force selection, questioning if the man truly intended to go as far as killing Dumak. While he spoke, the man moved to grab him by the neck. Unexpectedly, the man lifted Guiyang onto his neck, taking him by surprise. Following the surprising lift, the man threw him to the ground. As he uttered something, the man prepared to deliver another blow. However, he realized that his weapon was no longer in his possession. Surprisingly, Guiyang managed to seize the man's weapon and presented it to him with a smile. Dumak then spoke about Guiyang's character. With confidence, Dumak stated that even if Guiyang seemed a bit unpolished, his skills were far from crude. Suddenly caught off guard, the man experienced a surprise when Guiyang targeted and struck his leg. The sudden attack left the man in shock and caused him to experience pain. Thank you for watching. If you like this story, please comment next part. I hope you like our today's story. See you next time. Goodbye.